Good morning. I call this special meeting of the Carrabelle City Commission to order. It's Tuesday, June 21st, 2022, 10:30 a.m. This meeting is being conducted in the Carrabelle City Hall chambers. We'll open with a prayer by Commissioner Allen, and then I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our God and Father in heaven, we're so grateful that we have this opportunity to come together and discuss things that would improve and help our citizens and our lovely city that we have. I ask you to be with us in our wisdom and judgment, that we might do that which we not only be right for the folks here, but also in your sight. We ask this in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good morning and welcome, and thank you all for silencing your phones, as I will do mine right now. Okay. All right. We'll just start off. We have the attorney has an item, or maybe two, that he would like to report on. If we could just move forward on that one.
I know we've unfortunately had this occur before, but Commissioner Mathis no longer being with us. So I feel like I can see him grinning back at me right now, sitting there. And what that's resulted in, as we've had in the past, where you have a vacancy on the commission, and the manner in which vacancies are filled is in the charter, and it's filled by majority vote of the remaining commissioners at a meeting to serve until the next general election, which is coming up in November. So to basically appoint someone to fill Commissioner Mathis's shoes until the election, and then, and I believe we've already been through this process with the supervisor, is that this upcoming election will have 2 seats for 4 years and 1 seat for 2 years, the unexpired term. So it's up to you all. You can take your time with it, but probably at this upcoming meeting would be to appoint someone to fill out serve as a commissioner until the election. And discuss.
Well, I would like to speak to the commissioners, because I don't have an opportunity otherwise. This is the only time we're supposed to be speaking to each other about items that come before the commission. But this is not the same situation that we had whenever we appointed Mel Kelly. Yes, thank you. It's not the same situation, because we now have a candidate, candidate Walden, who ran for the 2-year term, and he is uncontested, and we know that candidate Walden will serve as a commissioner beginning in November. I don't know what date it is, but after the November election. And we do know that candidate Walden, Mr. Walden, has attended no less than at least 95% of this city's meetings and workshops and CRA meetings, budget workshops, since he last served on this board about a year and a half ago, where he had completed a 5-year term. In my opinion, Mr. Walden can hit the ground running. It will, if we were to consider and appoint Mr. Walden, it would continue as business as usual. It would provide continuity from a city's budget perspective. Mr. Walden has a good knowledge and excellent understanding of the citizens' needs and desires, this board's needs and overall goals. Mr. Walden understands the upcoming city and CRA projects. He knows about the annual budget development process, which is upcoming in the next couple of months. Mr. Walden has an excellent understanding of city government operations and the needs of city staff. if we were to appoint Mr. Walden to serve for the next 4 months until the general election, we would have a smooth transaction for all involved, including city staff, because they would not have to so-called hire or instate another person and then instate Mr. Walden when the time comes for him to serve his full term. I believe it is our fiduciary duty and the logical choice. Now, as Commissioner Brown agreed, the last appointment was a different situation. But the appointee on our last appointment was a past mayor of the city of Carrabelle. The appointee before that was an experienced county commissioner of 20 years, Mr. Buzz Putnell. The appointee even before that was an experienced city and county commissioner, Mr. Raymond Williams. And so I have been involved in 3 appointments since I've been on board here for 11 years. And that's what I would suggest. If Mr. Walden is not ready to accept appointment today, I would recommend that he take his seat if we all agree to appoint him at our July 7th meeting. And I would like to go ahead and motion for Keith Walden to be the appointee for the next 4 months.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have made that motion, Ms. Courtney, and then a second by Commissioner Brown. Do we have discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Any other?
Took words out of my mouth.
Okay, all right.
But I think if it's appropriate, we go ahead and make that appointment right now and move forward.
That's fine with me. I would leave that up to Mr. Walden.
And he can speak for himself, but he and I have had this discussion and he's ready to go. Is that correct?
I would be ready by July 7th.
All right, July 7th.
July the 7th.
All right.
I was thinking more.
But this
like-
guy here, I think he raised his hand.
I just had a question because during the, and I've had some talk with some staff that whoever ran for this election could not be appointed, that it would have to be somebody after that. Therefore, due to the candidates and all, I specifically withheld my application and I sent Keisha an email to be considered to be appointed. So if that is wrong, I'd like to know.
Is that in our charter?
No, this is where that has come up is, and I've talked to different commissioners about this. This came up during the last appointment, and we thought that in the interest of, call it fairness, that the policy, and it was a new policy, so it wasn't something we've done in the past. We hadn't really been confronted with it, but the policy being that it would provide a perceived unfair advantage for someone to serve and appear to be an incumbent in an upcoming election. I believe, in talking to commissioners, is that in this situation, because there isn't, that is still, call it a recommended policy, but it's not in our charter, it's not binding, so it's not something that you have to follow. But in this scenario, where Mr. Walden has no opposition, so on his 2-year term,
Yes.
that the policy wouldn't apply because he's not running against anybody. It wouldn't give him an advantage against his opponent.
And that is really just an unwritten policy that we have unofficially adopted for the reasons that Mr. Hartman has just explained.
And I would like to speak to that, Mr. Pedrick. From my standpoint, I really appreciate your interest in your letter. And however, I feel the position I've taken at this point is due to the fact that Commissioner Walden had no opposition when he qualified for the remainder of the 2-year term that was vacated. And
I totally agree. I didn't run against Mr. Walden for a reason because I think he's excellent for the board. I just
Right.
wanted to make sure what I was told.
Okay, please let Commissioner Millender has
Yes,
the
ma'am.
floor. Please let him speak. And next,
Sorry.
if you want to speak more, please come to the podium.
Yes,
Please, sir,
ma'am.
and identify yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
so
Mr.
anyway, just to finish my comment, I really appreciate your interest. And not that I feel like that you wouldn't make a good candidate. I feel like you would. The mayor expressed my words by saying that due to the fact that Commissioner Walden qualified for that 2-year remainder of that 4-year term, which is 2 years, and he had no opponent, so that automatically put him into that seat beginning in November. And with that in mind, and the fact with his prior experience as stated by the mayor, it would be a wise choice to go ahead and put him in the interim, and let's move forward. But again, I appreciate your interest, and I think you were a worthy candidate to put in your letter requesting that consideration. And again, I thank you for doing that, but that was my position on that as far as being ready to appoint Commissioner Walden to be an interim between now and November. Does that make sense?
Okay. Would you like to speak then? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please approach the podium. Okay.
Vince Pedrick, yes, Commissioner Millen, that makes perfect sense, and I know Keith will do a wonderful job. I was just going based off of my discussions on the process and just making sure that it was good. I understand it is a smart choice as long as it's a legal choice to do, since he's running unopposed. Probably would have, if I would have known beforehand, it might have persuaded what I did with my application, but that's nor here nor there. There's a reason I didn't run against Mr. Walden, because I think he's an excellent choice and a good choice for this commission. So I agree with you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I thank you, Mr. Pedrick, for your interest. I think you would make an excellent candidate when the time is right. I was a little bit discouraged that you did not put your application in to run for commissioner to get yourself some experience, but I would advise that at your next opportunity. And, you know, start coming to all of our meetings, sitting at home. If you do, I don't know, watching them on the video is not like being here in real time, as you experienced in one of our meetings a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I flip-flop back and forth, but thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, we thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. We're going to have a big discussion about Summer Camp utility takeover, and you might find that interesting. So is there any other discussion? And I do appreciate your comments and agree with everything that you have said, Commissioner Miller. Thank you. Do we have any other discussion? I would ask Ms. Courtney then, would if we follow up with this, if it's voted in affirmative, would Mr. Walden be sworn in then on July 7th? Okay.
That was my thing.
Okay. All right. All right then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimous. Ms. Courtney, if you don't mind, I would like to go ahead and put Commissioner Mathis's name back up there, and we'll retire him in July. Okay?
And his cough drop that I brought is sitting right where he sat. He always looked forward to that cough drop.
Okay. Courtney, do you have anything to report? Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to new business. Discussion and possible action concerning Summer Camp Water and Sewer. And Ms. Precise, if you come up and speak to us, and we have, she's already presented to us, and Russell, you have at your desk a fairly large presentation, which I know that we're going to need some time to review as well.
Good morning, thank you. I appreciate everybody's time this morning and the opportunity to continue our discussions regarding summer camp and the utilities. At the last meeting, we talked just generally about what starting up the sewer treatment plant means in terms of summer camp in Carrabelle and St. Teresa and the city of Carrabelle. And what a lot of questions came out of that. You know, what does that mean from an operational perspective? How much does it cost? What does it mean in terms of a transition plan? And so we worked over the last few weeks to put together what we were calling an operations cash flow. I had an initial discussion with Russell about and we looked at trying to identify cost per residential unit. And it became apparent that because right now there's so few users on the system that those numbers didn't make sense. So we thought a more logical approach would be to start from the 2021 Public Service Commission annual report and do a 10-year cash flow, and certainly there's some assumptions built into that. But I think one of the things that it made clear to me was that for us to try and work through a transition agreement and get to a point where I thought everybody would be comfortable, I felt like we were trying to take on too much in too short amount of time, because there are a lot of, at this point, at least in my mind, a lot of unknowns with regard to pace of absorption in that community, what it's going to take to get the sewer treatment plant operational, as well as what it's going to take to operate it once that essentially switch is turned on. So I'm proposing that we do this transition maybe in a couple of steps, with the initial step being enter into a management agreement where the city assumes all of the operational aspects of the existing facilities. St. Joe underwrites any deficits and the operating costs for that, and that we do that for a couple of years. That would allow us time to get our permits in place for operating the treatment plant, make any interconnections that we need to make, continue to work with our builder partner and get a better understanding of what future potential and pace of future connections would be, and then also give the city some time to kind of get their arms around operating it. What does that mean in terms of integrating that facility into their operations from a staffing and manpower, but also thinking about potential future connections and services to other communities to the east. So starting with that, I've put together a little bit more detail in one of the sheets that I gave you, but I just wanted to put that out there before we started looking at the operations cash flow, which is the big sheet that I provided to you guys. And Summer Camp is not a brand new community. It's been around for several years now. So we had developed 226 lots, and we only have to date 38 users on the system. So we've got a pretty significant number of lots that have been sold to third parties, but that have not built a house or anything yet. And when you look at the top of the operations cash flow, that's where we've broken out the summer camp taps to show that we think only a couple of the existing property owners are going to tie onto the system per year. And the second line under that for the new lots is the lots that we anticipate working with our builder partner on. And we made some assumptions on this based on what they did in their initial contract with us. And we're in discussions with them. They are still proving out their pace. They've started construction on homes, but they haven't started their sales process yet. So also moving forward with the management agreement initially would allow them time to figure out what their sales pace is going to be, and then we can really put some numbers together that will have a lot more reality behind them. The residential tap fee revenue is in 2021 is straight from the Public Service Commission report, and that is what we charge each resident when they want to tap into the system. The residential usage fee is also from the Public Service Commission report, And we did not build in any escalators into the revenue. We held that flat. We figured that was a more conservative approach. We also have not figured in the potential for the FSU Marine Lab to tie into the system, which we think would happen pretty quickly once we got everything up and running. And we haven't taken into account any other development outside of the summer camp community. The water plant operating expenses are, the actual expenses that we've done, and then the sewer plant operating expenses for the first, for 21 is based on the Public Service Commission report. For all those expenses, we have assumed a 1% escalator year over year. To try and build in some conservatism there. And then Jose worked with the treatment plant manufacturer to get at some understanding of what potential operating and maintenance costs would be. And so you can see from this that we think we would be starting the treatment plant in 2023, but we're still accounting for some of the existing pump and haul because we don't know exactly when that will happen. And then over a couple of years, it transitions to fully being the sewer treatment plant. So if you look at the bottom of the page, you can see that the operating deficits are pretty significant in the early years. And then, somewhere between 202 and 240 units is when we think the operating costs will cover itself. One of the things that I want to point out is that we had, in 2004, we applied for these existing sewer rates that we're using, and we haven't done a rate study or a rate increase since then. So that may be something that we need to take into account as we go through this and figure out where we think we're going to end up. The stapled document provides some additional detail on how some of the numbers were calculated. When we did the annual absorptions for the revenue as one example, we did not assume that all of the current year units were coming online either all in January or all in December. Instead, we took 50% of the current year, assuming some would come on throughout the year. And we thought that was a logical way to try and figure out how to do that. So the revenue numbers include 100% of the previous year and 50% of the current year numbers. And I realize this is a lot of information to take in all at the beginning, but we have provided some information on where we are to date as far as pump out and as far as water production. And I don't know if anybody has any specific questions or comments at this particular point in time or concerns over trying to do a management agreement and then move on at some point to a donation agreement.
Well, although it's this is only 3 pages, and then your statement here, your financial statement or predictions. It's basic, but and then you have your cover letter. We're bombarded,
Yes.
because we haven't had an opportunity to review. We haven't had staff as our Mr. Russell hasn't had an opportunity to review this. Neither has the Attorney Hartman or city administrator. We all need time to review and to consult with staff and possibly have staff. If I sit down and study this, I would be able to understand this spreadsheet here, but maybe all of the commissioners can't. I don't know. But we want everyone to understand what your predictions are, and have Russell comment to that on us, what he thinks about it. But your proposal did you know that they were going to propose like a transition plan for us the city to manage the operations for a while until they could get their plant up and running, the wastewater?
Right, well, based on our previous discussions, you know, I think there were some deadlines you were trying to meet and have some things under construction by December. And from our previous discussions, I understood that St. Joe desired for Carrabelle to go ahead and take ownership. So I think this is a wise step. I think it's a wise choice. I think it's a smart way to do it. It provides plenty of opportunity for the city to understand the system, operate it, understand the costs associated with it. Just shooting from the hip based on what I've seen today, I think that's what I would say. I think it's a smart way to do it. And then looking at the pro forma, the results here are not too far off from the original feasibility study in terms of when the net operating income would turn positive. So, and did I answer your question?
Yes, and they're conservative on that income. I see, you know, like in 2027, you know, $11,000, $12,000 is conservative. Now, the 1% expense growth, and now you're talking about, this really is more like cost of expense increase.
Yes, yeah.
And we don't know what.
We don't know, but we figured holding the revenue flat and providing for some cost increase that, you know, might get us in the ballpark, and that's done, you know, typically in pro forma projections.
1% is used, or?
Some percent is used.
I would speak to Russell again. I would like to see that percentage increase because, you know, the cost of living has run 2.5 to 4, somewhere around in there. We're out of control right now, but everyone hopes that won't last forever. But I would like to see that increase to, you know, maybe a 3 or 4.
Sure.
Something like that, so we could have a more realistic outlook on it.
You know, you can take some historical operation and maintenance cost history and see what the increase has been over time, and that'll give you some indication of what that projection could be. So.
And then, Ms. Courtney, did you see in your brief overview that Carrabelle will keep separate books and records?
I do see that.
And that would be a little. Well, for their small accounts, right now you have 38 accounts. I mean, that would be all right, but once they get up into the 200, 240 that she talks about, you know, we would certainly need another staff member or something. Or eventually, though, we would get away from that, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I think that, you know, we would want to understand that the costs that we're underwriting are only the costs associated with the Summer Camp utility company. And once we got, you know, hopefully to the next step where we're transitioning the entire utility over, you know, that you guys can incorporate it into your systems. However, we would have no interest in trying to audit anything at that point.
Is there any opportunity for profit, or would this just be, is this merely a break-even proposal?
Well, certainly it's all up for discussion. I mean, you know, we have to start from somewhere, and I think our previous starting point was that we wanted to try and transition the utility to you guys as quickly as possible, or get some help with, you know, some of our permitting efforts and air connection efforts. But I think, you know, doing this, you know, if there's a reasonable amount of profit in there, I think we're certainly open to discussing that and what that looks like. You know, I think we're just trying to put something out here that can foster a healthy discussion between the both of us so that we can hopefully come to some type of mutual agreement.
Mayor, I'll just speak real quickly and more like in a summary. I agree with Ms. Precise's words that this can be a good working tool to start from. In my mind, there's questions, and there's probably gonna be more questions. As the mayor stated, I would like to have the opportunity to digest this and have more conversation with our engineer and with our water and sewer superintendent sitting back there. I can think of quite a few questions that I have right now. But it's basically to them and not to you.
Sure.
Because of my questions were generated by reading what you have and needing answers from staff, if you will. And again, we can use this as a working tool for discussion, but I think we're still in the discussion stage. That's my opinion, Mayor.
I do as well. I was just trying to remember when the city of Carrabelle last had a rate increase. That was in like 14, somewhere around in there. And we did a rate increase 2013, 14. It was a 3-year tiered up. And you haven't done it now for 18 years. And you mentioned that. And who would you propose that would conduct the rate study and increase those rates?
Well, I am certainly looking for suggestions and opportunities. I think I've mentioned previously, being a utility operator is not our core business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going through this exercise, it has become apparent probably to us and to everybody else here that it is not our core business.
Yeah.
So if there is a group that is suggested that maybe you guys have worked with in the past or somebody else, we're certainly open for discussion on that.
Okay. And who would apply for your permits to get your sewer collection system and wastewater?
So need to probably have Jose talk about that. And in my mind, it is that, St. Joe or Summer Camp is making the application for the permit. So that responsibility would be on us, but I feel like somewhere in there has to be a signature for a licensed operator. And our hope is that, if we were to get to a management agreement situation, that's something that the city would potentially help us with.
And then I always bring this up, it always comes up, you've got your tap fees have not been paid, the total platted residential meters in service, and the tap fees have been paid for your 38 meters that are in service, but you've got some 188 meters to be set, but those fees have not paid. That would come when you sell the lot or whatever happens. But
correct.
We always discuss negotiation on a future tap fees, who collects, how that would be collected. And Mr. Hartman, would there be, I don't know how to word it, some type of a clause that would allow the city to, I don't know, not take the takeover if we're seeing that, just say, and I'm going to refer to, with all due respect, another subdivision that the city took over to the east, and it has yet to build out, and that takeover was back in, I don't know, 2008, somewhere in there, St. James Bay, and it has not yet, it does not yet support itself. So, we know we're in a fluid economic situation, and we don't want to get in a situation like that, another 15, 20 years, and you're still not near built out. But I will say that my husband and I visited Windmark on Friday, and D.R. Horton is well underway, and that is impressive what has happened over there in the past 8 to 12 months. They are rocking and rolling and building, and it appeared to me that all the houses that were finished were occupied. So they are constructing, and they are selling.
And I know what we've got here is just kind of an outline with some financial information backing it up. And what I think I see here is under this management agreement for operations is the city, and of course it's up to, I guess, Russell and myself to make sure of this, but I'm gonna call it a no-risk test drive of what's going on, of the water and sewer operations out there. Depending on what the agreement says, but it would not appear that it would commit us to, you know, there would be terms for the management agreement, it says up here 2 years. And then the thing that I think we're kind of zeroing in on is where it talks in lieu of a management fee, St. Joe would cover operating deficits or actual costs with no markup. So just as Commissioner Melander said, it would be a question of our staff is, do we need to add staff? Do we have, you know, existing staff? I mean, those are all questions. And there's maybe a small legal question of, I know we've talked about this before, and I certainly didn't raise any issue before, but I haven't inquired, is for a municipality to provide these services. I'm familiar with engineering firms and different entities around the state that provide these management services, water and sewer management. I'm pretty sure a city can do it. I mean, but that is something we need to just nail down.
Yes,
Charlie, can I ask you to come up?
Sure.
It's street talk. You help me out here. I'm looking for the expert information. Does that facility or system, are you going to be, would it be able to be operated with 38 customers? Is it going to have enough capacity? I've always heard that it doesn't have enough capacity to operate, and that's the reason why they pump it and haul it.
So we're talking about the sewage.
Yep.
Yeah, at that point, there's not enough flow to make the effluent that they're looking for.
Okay, that's
although I had thought about, and this is something that we would have to work together with, is there may be some staging from DEP on the amount of flow, the operations, and how the wastewater plant would operate. You may be able to go to them, DEP, and talk to them about that. Because right now, there's not enough flow. If you hauled all the sewage over there, there wouldn't be enough flow to produce a quality effluent or AWT quality effluent.
That was one of the major factors in our discussion when we were talking about connection. If my memory serves me
right. That way
right.
we didn't have to worry about how much flow there was.
Exactly.
Or wasn't. We would just absorb it into our system.
Yeah. So in this right here, or in this proposal, whatever we want to call it, you couldn't operate that plant with the current flow that you have now.
You would have to have more flow for a daily basis type situation, yes.
Yeah.
For the quality of the effluent, the
Yeah.
AWT quality, yeah.
And for you and your staff to operate that facility as it currently is, would you have to add staff?
So water and wastewater operations would include some new staff. All of our operators are booked on DEP hours right now. We have a very limited, maybe 2 hours left in the day on the water plant guy. So yeah, water and wastewater would include another operator or some other situation. There's still other things that, so in a water plant, I had originally all the time talked about the interconnect of the two water plants, probably going way beyond where you were at, but if you interconnected those two, the sampling requirements and the operation requirements would go away. So I wouldn't have an operator on staff out there. The operator would be on staff at Lanark, and they would be a connected system. And the amount of sampling that's being done out there to operate a water system would go away. It would all be done at Lanark, and we would only do it at that one site. So we would only add on a couple of small samples, bacteriologicals, out in the system to add their system onto it. And that would be a way to keep the costs down. That's only on the water system. The sewer system, I suspect it would be a couple of years before it becomes operational. And in that point in time, maybe there'll be enough customers that have come along to feed the plant.
Well, my concerns is going back, Mayor, to same thing that our attorney stated so gracefully, a 2-year test drive. A 2-year test drive, we decide not to buy. And we've already invested in a vehicle and more staff. That's the reason why I'm asking you, are we gonna have to have additional staff to conduct a 2-year test drive under this current, of course, you haven't had the chance to look at this, I guess.
No,
Yeah.
I briefed over it. That's, so there's some money built in there if St. Joe's gonna compensate for the operations out there, that it's possible for a couple of years that,
Yeah.
I guess in the 2-year period, it's gonna depend on growth.
Correct. And there's some good proposals, and just like the mayor stated, she and her husband made the visit to Windmark. My wife and I made a visit over there 3 weeks ago, coming back from Panama City. Of course, I already knew some of what was going on there, but she and I just rode through. But anyway, that's wonderful and great if it happens, and it creates more customers, customer base, and you have more flow coming through the system, which allows things to operate. I'm not getting into yours because I don't know anything about it. But if all that happens, it's well and good. But if it doesn't happen, what do we do? And that's in the back of my mind. I have to think about that. So anyway,
Right.
That's some of the questions I have for you at this point right here. And Russell, I'm sure you listening from your professional standpoint. So, Mayor, that's a couple that I have right
Thank
now.
you. Excellent questions, I appreciate it.
Yes.
And it is in the back of my mind, like I said earlier, if the development doesn't happen for some unforeseen reason, then how do we proceed? And Charlie, I would ask you, does the DEP have requirements on the quality of the effluent from an AWT?
So the county requires the wastewater treatment facilities to be AWT in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And the DEP is going to follow that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be your limit. But it's possible that we can sit down with DEP and ask them to stage the permit on flow. In other words, the more flow we have, the higher quality effluent we will have to reach, as well as the operating staff.
But those are questions that we would have to get answered.
So we would have to be, we would have to be involved in the whole transition
Right.
to get to that point, yeah.
And I believe I understand that it would take 2 years to get the wastewater plant operational. Is that what I was understanding?
That would be my guess, just looking at pipe, contractors, bidding, the whole process, and getting all that stuff in the ground. I mean, I would guess it. I will look at Lighthouse. We've been like 4 years.
I know it. But we would need to understand then at the time the wastewater treatment plant became operational, how many, we would know, we would have a better idea if growth is happening out there or if it's stalemated. That would give us an opportunity to know that. But if you took over the water treatment plant as is, then you're going to have the way I'm understanding from what Commissioner Millender and you spoke about, you'd have to have yourself another licensed operator for
Sure.
some part-time, maybe even.
So I had some thoughts about that. If it was, if the operator wasn't necessarily paid through the city of Carrabelle, and I'm outside the box here, then the city of Carrabelle wouldn't have to pay overtime to that operator. Once we meet 8 hours here, you're gonna pay overtime to that person to be out there. Now, it's not that there aren't enough hours in the day. It's just I have all my hours for myself and my staff already covered at our treatment facilities. So I don't have any extra, but if it was overtime or paid separately so it didn't cause overtime, I guess that might be a way to say it, it's possible to work something out.
But would a staff member be willing to work overtime and not get paid overtime?
I guess that can all be negotiated.
Okay,
this way.
well, depends upon what they were paid, I suppose. But I do understand what you're saying about the water interconnection, and then that is very few, infield sampling would be minimal.
Right, it's
and
just a
all of
connected
your-
part of the system.
Yes, it
Just
would
no
just be
piece pipe that
integrated
into
in
it,
there,
right.
and your license.
And I don't mean to
operator.
mothball their system, but
Mhm.
for the short period of time, it would cut expenses down dramatically.
And cut down the need for a licensed operator, an additional.
Right.
But these are all hurdles that we need to cross.
I understand, yeah.
And I would like to reiterate my position that I've spoken to Ms. Precise about and others from the company, is I'm very interested. And I'm not trying to rain on the parade, but I have to look out for the welfare of the citizens of Carrabelle and may ask some hard questions, just as you do in your profession, and work through those hurdles as we go. But I am definitely interested, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. I'm interested as well.
Yeah.
And I believe everyone is interested, or we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, just wanted to understand that I'm not trying to talk against it, just want to ask all these questions and make sure from our professional standpoint that we know what we're doing. I'm not in the water and sewer business, don't know anything about it, but that gentleman does.
But yet we have to make the decisions.
Exactly.
And we want to make the best decisions for the water and sewer enterprise of the city of Carrabelle.
And that fell over there.
Yeah, and Mr. Hartman, and
Yes.
Mr. Charlie. You're running a good ship, and we want it to stay that way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Charlie, and I'll finish by saying from my standpoint, any other thing that you can think of that we need to address while we're going through this process, if you'd please offer it, I would appreciate it. And I know the rest of the board would as well. So,
Sure.
thank you.
Maybe we want to, with all due respect, have a workshop without the St. Joe Company representatives present. We might want to do that as well. And Russell, you wanted to.
Yeah, I just had a question about the interconnection of the water. That seemed to be an important point for the city, just from a reliability standpoint, and as a regional provider, having that interconnection is very meaningful to Carrabelle. Have you thought about how that could be incorporated?
We have not thought about that. We could think about that. I think, in your feasibility study, I think that was one of the steps that was proposed, and there was some dollar figure associated with that. I'm sure it's probably a different dollar figure now. So we were thinking in terms of operations and operating and trying to limit capital outlay. If we were either going to interconnect everything and send everything back to the city, or try and operate the St. James Island Utility Company as a standalone. We're certainly not opposed to interconnecting, but I think that would just be some additional discussion on if we were to, or St. Joe was to bear the 100% of that cost, kind of thinking through that in terms of everything else, and what does that really mean, or is there some opportunity for either grants or cost sharing or something else? I know there's a lot of different things out there, but don't know specifically enough about each one of them.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, if I can. That was mentioned in our initial discussions, that there was a possibility for St. Joe to get into some grant monies to be able to assist them with that cost. I mean, we didn't get into it, but your company did, and John Curtis, was that his name? Yes, John Curtis had had some discussions on that.
That's all I have. Thank you, at the moment.
Well, I would hope that all the commissioners have their undivided attention to this meeting, because it's very important to the decision that we're going to have to make here. How would we like to proceed? I know we're not ready to make any decision today. I feel like from Commissioner Millender's comments, I haven't heard much from the other commissioners regarding the agreement, the proposed agreement. Maybe we should have a meeting.
I'm going to propose that we continue, tread forward, move slowly, and maybe, as you stated, Mayor, have a workshop, if you will, with Charlie, with Russell, with our attorney, and let's hash out some of our concerns and get some answers from our staff.
Okay. All right, so we have this motion by Commissioner Millender.
Was it a motion?
That's it.
It is, I'm just kidding.
And the motion is that you propose to continue to move forward and conduct a workshop with staff only. Okay. All right, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Then at that point, maybe we can get back with Ms. Precise and go from there.
Definitely. All right, so that, do we have a second regarding that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, and that motion is second by Commissioner Allen. Do we have any further discussion, except to decide when we want to have this workshop?
I have one
Okay.
more question. Jose had talked to the manufacturer.
Correct.
Aqua Aerobics. I'd like to hear what they had to say.
Okay.
All right. And we're in the middle of a motion now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were gonna adjourn.
No, we don't have to adjourn, but we know we're going to move forward with the workshop with staff. I think we've got a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and that motion carries. So we know now we have a little bit of a direction, but Mr. Jose.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I've been in contact with Aqua Aerobics, which is the manufacturer for the wastewater treatment facility. And as you may know, that facility was designed for an average flow of 120,000 gallons per day. I think it's a peak of 190,000 gallons per day. In discussions with them, they said that it was designed to operate, on a wastewater plant, it's always tough to meet the effluent when you got low flows and high flows. So the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle. But that facility was designed to operate at a 15% of the design flow capacity. That's about 18,000 gallons per day. Furthermore, they said it's an SBR, which is 2 trains. So while one train is actually in operation, the other one is sitting in idle waiting for wastewater to come in and then go through the process. So in order, when it gets to the low flows, what they suggested, in order to operate both trains, is just run with one train. And then that way you're not having to switch back and forth and then keep up the biological bacteria active on both basins, so you only got one basin to deal with. And they felt that under that scenario, you could operate it under less than 15% flow. It's always risk, but there's a possibility to do that, and then we can certainly do that once the wastewater plant gets fire up and going, and see what effluents are achieved anyway. So there are some flexibilities in that facility that are designed and achieved through the design process. So we don't have to get to the full 30 or 40%, 50% capacity. It is designed to operate at a low percent as well too. So.
Okay, I'll just respond by saying, I do understand everything you said, except for I don't know how much flow and so forth, but that gentleman back there does, and I hope that's part of the discussion we'll have when we have our meeting. and being able, he can advise us in the right direction on that.
Correct,
And interpret it for us.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. Well, just in a nutshell, 18,000 gallons, and I believe it's like 200 gallons per day per lot roughly is what that, so that's about 72 homes.
72 units? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, so that kind of gives you an idea of what,
Thank you.
So we need 72 homes to operate.
well, at the 15%,
Yeah.
less than that, you know,
Yes.
it'll still go for the system, it's just gonna be one train by itself.
Okay, so to operate the entire system.
Exactly,
Mhm.
yeah. That will be about the minimum that it was recommended.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Charlie, did you have any more questions for Mr.
I go with that.
President?
It fits in the ballpark of what I said. You know,
Yeah.
originally, the last meeting, I said like 10,000 gallons. I think we're 10 or 12, one basin, really low flow,
Yeah.
minimum. So, yeah, I think all that's respectable, yes.
Thank you. Mayor, would you like to choose a date for that workshop?
Well, are we ready to do that? I'm ready.
I'm ready.
If you are, Courtney, and staff over, the attorney, we have to ask the attorney.
Yeah, Russell and Charlie and Dan.
I think I did, and I gave you one, I did already, because we're talking about other, I'm looking to see if I brought it with me. It was the 11th, I think.
11th, 12th, 13th,
And 15th in the afternoon.
15th.
In the afternoon.
Preferably Monday or Tuesday, 11th or 12th. For me.
What about those dates?
Monday or Tuesday, the 11th through 12th. Anytime.
That's July.
July.
Mhm. That would be fine with me. We're closed on the 4th, and then we have our city commission meeting on the 7th. City Hall is closed, so it would be the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, or 15th in the afternoon for me, so.
I won't be here on the 15th.
Okay, so the 15th, then we would say that would be out, because Charlie's a must. So how does staff look?
I'm open all that week.
Okay.
So we have a hurricane preparedness meeting that week as well?
Yeah, I haven't set
Don't
a
wanna-
day yet, but
Okay.
depending on what day y'all said, I won't do the same day.
All right.
Just a short,
I just didn't know if we were overlapping.
just a little brief
Okay.
review. Might last half an hour. So I'm available, and you say, Ms.
Monday or
Clark?
Tuesday, do you want to do Tuesday at like 1:30?
Dan's checking his calendar.
Okay.
I
The
think.
only thing, I have a conflict at about 3 o'clock on Tuesday, but it should still work 1:30 if we go
Or
an
we could
hour.
go in the morning even, on Tuesday, at 10:30 or 11?
That'd be, all those are fine.
Okay. How is that for you, Commissioner Melander?
I'm good.
Okay, and Commissioner Allen?
What time?
Well, we're just thinking about maybe 11, 10:30 or 11.
That's fine, whatever.
And then you would be on board by then, Commissioner-elect Walden. Would that be all right with you, sir? Okay. So the 12th at 11? Paperwork around here. All right, do we have a motion for that, July 12th
I'll motion for it.
at 11 a.m.?
That's good with me.
Okay. All right, so we have that motion for a workshop with staff regarding the summer camp utilities takeover by Commissioner Melander and second by
Commissioner
Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that motion carries. And we certainly will follow up, with you and let you know the outcome of that, and we'll maybe plan another meeting.
What was the
Certainly.
motion?
I beg your pardon?
What was the motion? To have the
To
workshop?
conduct a workshop with the staff only regarding the summer camp utilities takeover by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Maybe a question for Ms. Precise.
All right.
Is a timeline that, I know this has gone on for years now, and all good, and we move on kind of city time. But as far as, I mean, do you all have any, not necessarily hard deadlines, but do you have timelines that you're working under?
So when we, or when I first reinitiated this discussion earlier this year, we were trying to get to a point where we were working towards either having permit or being under construction by the end of the year on some of the interconnection stuff. But, you know, the more that we were working on it, I think it became clear to me that it wouldn't do any of us any favors to try and kind of force that a little bit. So yes, we do want to move it forward. We want to continue to work on it, but we don't have I've got to have this done by September 30th or anything like that. I think, you know, as we all get further into it and more time goes by and we understand what our builder partner's doing, and how successful they are or are not, I think that will better inform all of our timelines on, you know, what do we really need to get in place and by when. And I would say, you know, as we continue the discussions, that we're gonna start exploring kind of additional phases of development, exploring what interconnections we still need to make to get the sanitary system fully operational. And so we'll be moving some of that stuff forward on our end, but, you know, like you guys, we're gonna kind of try and still do, you know, what is it, crawl, walk, run. So I think we're still in the crawling stage a little bit because, you know, we just don't know how it's gonna go.
Good, no, understood. Just want to make sure everybody's expectations are.
Good question. I think we're on the same track.
Yep.
All right, well, we thank you. We thank you for reaching out, and it was a pleasure to see you today. Do we have any other business? Any other questions to staff or to the St. Joe Company from staff or the commission? I want to make sure because we're here and we just want to cover all the bases that we can right now. All right.
How many homes are under construction?
So our builder partner has purchased 34 lots from us, and they have gotten started on, I know they've cleared, I know Shane has set 7 meters for them already. They are probably 60 days out from having their first home completed and for sale. So, you know, if you're familiar with them, once they get going and they understand, you know, where they're going, they go pretty quickly. So I think, you know, taking additional time to get a handle on that is just going to benefit everybody.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that one.
Okay, a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Okay, and second by Commissioner Millender. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that motion carries, and we'll see you back here at 1:30 this afternoon.
See you later, buddy.
Thank you. Thank y'all very